Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen. This week, a very special guest, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dr. Tom Prichard. Welcome to the show.
Well, good morning, Joe. Hope you guys are doing well.
Doing very good. Happy to have you here. I'm going to take a little deep dive into your career quick, and I've got a lot to touch on. So let's rewind to the very beginning. Kind of growing up as a wrestling fan, when did you first discover pro wrestling? Who were some of your favorites?
Well, I was born in El Paso, Texas, and was raised there for the first 9 years of my life, and then we moved to Houston, Texas. But for as long as I can remember, I mean, since I remember watching TV, I was always enamored with professional wrestling, and the Funks were big in West Texas at that time. And so Dory Sr., Jr., and Terry were all the guys that I watched every single week, along with a guy like Ricky Romero, Thunderbolt Patterson. Oh my gosh, there were all kinds of guys who came in and out of Houston, or in and out of El Paso. And then we moved to Houston, summer of 1969, I believe it was. We found another show, Paul Bosch. It was on UHF channels back then. We had 3 channels, and you had your UHF channels, and that was channel 39 for Houston. And it was a whole set of new wrestlers and new people that I'd never seen before. And I'd heard of them, but guys like Wahoo McDaniel, Johnny Valentine, the Great Malenko, Jose Lothario, all these guys, I mean, were drawing huge houses at the Sam Houston Coliseum. And since it was on a Friday night, my mom decided that, tickets at $5, she would take Bruce and myself every Friday night to Houston wrestling, get out of the house. And man, it was even larger than life in person, obviously. But I mean, just everything came into focus, and Houston wrestling became the place for me, man. But ever since I can remember, I've been a wrestling fan, and those guys I just mentioned are the ones that really had an influence.
And you're taking in all of this wrestling as a fan. There's so much great talent, as you mentioned, in that area specifically. At what point was there a single moment where you got the itch and you said, you know what, this is something that I'd like to do?
From the very first time I saw it on TV, that's something I knew I wanted to do. And I didn't care about anything else, didn't care about school, didn't care about anything else. Just it was wrestling 24/7. And that can be good and that can be bad, but it's something I focused on, something I when we first got to Houston, we got permanent reservations. We had the same seats every week. And then we were sitting in the general admission. It was cool there, but then my mom would pick up the tickets one time, and the lady says, "Hey, we have some new tickets coming up if you want to move down to ringside and sit right in front of the interview stand and watch from there." So we did. And when I met Paul Bosch the first time, I told him, I said, "I want to be a wrestler." And he said, "Well, you're too small." So I thought, okay, well, that's going to be my job from here on out, is to get bigger. So, I ever since I saw it on TV, ever since I saw that first promo, that interview, or the Infernos with their mask on, the medics, the interns, Grizzly Smith, Harley Race, all these guys just seemed so outrageous and outlandish that they could get away with this stuff on TV and nobody got arrested. I mean, that just amazed me, and looking back on it now, I thought, well, how stupid could you have been? But I think there were still some people who believed in professional wrestling back then, and I was one of them, until I started really watching close and studying. And once I studied it and understood there's more to it than we think, that really intrigued me. And I wanted to be one of the guys that could do that. So.
And how did that work for you? How did you actually enter the business, and where did you get your training done?
Well, I was just going to say, when I met Paul Bosch and told him I wanted to be a wrestler, and I started taking pictures for magazines when I was 12 years old for Jim Melby and Norm Keitzer. Wrestling News, and oh, they used to do the programs around the territories too. But they sent me a press pass, actually. And I'm 12 years old. I just got a Nikon camera. Wahoo McDaniel, Jack Briscoe just won the title. We saw Jack win the title in Houston and all these other things. But Wahoo, leading up to that, Wahoo and Briscoe had a feud. And I wanted to capture that and go down to ringside. My brother, Ken, my older brother Ken, actually called Paul Bosch and asked him if he would meet with me after school just to see the press pass and give me some access to ringside pictures, ringside photos. And he took me down to Paul's office one afternoon and sat there across Paul Bosch, big, huge 6'5" man, 200, I don't know, 40 pounds at that time, but he was huge, just and even bigger than me, obviously. But he granted me access for ringside to take ringside pictures. They got published in Gong magazine. They got published in Wrestling News. So that gave me something to stand on. And eventually I got down to ringside more and more, take pictures of the matches. And there came a time when one of the seconds, they used to have seconds come down to ringside at Houston, take the jackets back.
Yep.
And one of the seconds was going on vacation. And I asked Paul if I could be the second next week. And he said yes. So they didn't let me in the dressing room or anything, but they let me go down the ringside, take the jackets, take it back, and just put it on the inside of the hallway there. But I got in the ring, checked the guys afterwards. So I mean, I was leading on to it, and then Paul had changed offices during the summer one time and asked me if I wanted to work in the office during the summertime. So I mean, I was doing that during high school, during summer breaks, working in the office, and then I would also work as the assistant producer on Houston Wrestling, sit next to Paul every Friday night during ringside during my high school years too, until I started wrestling at 20 years old. So that's kind of how I got into it. Paul relinquished and gave me an opportunity to be around it, see if I really loved it, see if that's what I really wanted to do, and sure enough, it was. And then I eventually got a chance to get in the ring and work.
And what a great start. 12 years old, getting your first press pass. That's impressive.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's great. So obviously you've had several tag team partners over the years. Let's talk about the late Jim Backlund. You know, Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey, of course, one half of the Heavenly Bodies. You know, you guys went on to Smoky Mountain Tag Team Champions, of course. And, you know, what memories do you have of Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey as a man, you know, and behind the scenes and as a friend?
Well, we were actually two different guys. I mean, two completely different personas, characters, likes, dislikes, all things like that. And I of course, I was a loner most of the time anyway. You know, I mean, I had my friends, I had my people I hung out with, but at the same time, I was one of those guys that if I walked in someplace, I wasn't looking for attention. I wanted to scope things out and see how it was. Whereas Jimmy liked to go in there and let everybody know we're there and light up a cigarette and let's go. So we didn't really do too much. We tried hanging out in the beginning outside the ring, but we really kind of just it was a business proposition, a business partnership. So he kind of went his way and I went my way, actually. Yeah.
So for me, you know, as a kid growing up as a fan, you know, Smoky Mountain Wrestling I would learn about in the magazines, which was obviously a big part of my childhood. And it's too bad that the kids of today don't have that, you know, and you'd go to the newsstand when your parents are shopping or whatever, and there they are, all the magazines. So you learn on the different territories and Smoky Mountain being one of them. And my first time seeing anything Smoky Mountain related was the 1993 Survivor Series, where you would be, you know, in tag team action on that pay-per-view is at the Boston Garden against the Rock and Roll Express. And for me, it was such a unique situation because to see the Smoky Mountain titles on WWF television was very unique. And, you know, what was that like at the time, kind of wrestling on the grand stage, but representing Smoky Mountain?
It was cool in the beginning because we had actually done something with WCW first, with the Rock and Roll Express. And
Sure.
then that year was SummerSlam, and I think that caught people's attentions, and they were looking for obviously something in the way of a manager type or American spokesman, what it turned out to be. And Cornette had been on that grand stage again, and when they called us, it was cool. We got SummerSlam, then we got Survivor Series, and they booed us out of the building in Survivor Series. They hated that Southern style match. I mean, it's definitely a culture thing. At least it was that night, because we went out, we did one of our rock and roll Heavenly Bodies, Rock and Roll Midnight Express, because it was pretty much the same thing. That style of match just didn't get over in Survivor Series. I thought it was great, good match, but people just weren't buying it.
I have fond memories of it. As a New England fan, I appreciated it still. And, I always had an appreciation for Smoky Mountain and USWA and all these territories, like I said, by reading the magazines and kind of finding different details. But, always enjoyed that memory. And it was nice to see the Smoky Mountain titles on pay-per-view for sure.
Yeah, it was kind of a cool thing for the time. Yeah, definitely.
So what would you say is your greatest takeaway from your time specifically in Smoky Mountain?
It gave me an opportunity I'd known Jim Cornette for a while, but to get the chance to work that close with him was a great opportunity just to see another aspect that I'd really been ignoring for a long time. I mean, for at that time, I guess 13 years, 14 years, something like that. I'd been wrestling, going up and down the roads, just pretty much doing my thing and not taking a whole lot of things seriously. And then we got to Smoky Mountain, and it was a spot. It was an opportunity, and I took it for what it was. And it just, I think it had all the key ingredients with a guy who knew how to tell stories, Jim Cornette. But I just think it was the wrong time. That was when Vince was aggressively taking over, and I think the only other territory was USWA in Memphis, and this just wasn't the ideal time to start up a wrestling company from scratch. But I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was an opportunity for guys who were just starting out to get opportunities and chances to show what they could do. And it was a good opportunity for veterans who wanted to continue in the business and had something to offer.
So I was a ring announcer for 10 years, always enjoyed announcing, and that was just kind of one of my passions. Always looked up to Howard Finkel. So, I remember you kind of in a unique situation. You would never see it back then, where you would actually be part of the ring introduction and the mic would be handed to you and you would introduce Jim Cornette. How did that come about, that little segment?
Well, that came about because Stan Lane used to do it in Smoky Mountain. So when Stan left, it was something Jimmy wanted to continue on.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Any memories of working with Tim White, one of the kind of the cornerstones backstage with WWF?
I think you hear this from everybody. Tim was great. Tim was a nice guy, gentleman at all turns, great referee, and I always like being with Tim. He was a great guy.
And how did you enjoy personally your Heavenly Body run in the WWF as opposed to other territories?
Well, we had an idea. I think the first TV we did, and the next day somebody said, "Hey, Pat wants to talk to you guys." I'm thinking he's going to tell us what a great match this is, and nope, he told us how horrible we were, and yeah, we knew our spot, we knew our place there, but it was a great opportunity to be up there and just see the machine, how it worked, and eventually when I started training guys, I got a clearer picture of the way it works, and I can only blame myself for being closed-minded at times, because you can't be closed-minded and expect to move forward in any business, I think. But I thought we did okay for the year and a half we were there. I mean, we certainly weren't in anybody's clique, and weren't looking to make waves, and that's what you have to do. You have to make waves. You got to go in there. You got to be assertive if you want to be anything. You also have to know how to get your way in.
Yeah. So I always thought you guys had a great look, with those robes. It really made you stand out. And, that's something that I remember as a fan. And that was, 1993, 1994. But then 1995, you would add the wings or whatever that was to the back of the robe. Whose idea was that?
That was WWE's idea. No
Okay.
WWF at that time. Yeah, we certainly didn't want to put the wings on, but that was a WWE suggestion, and we took it. Yeah.
So, character development question for you. Event Center was a big segment they'd always have for WWF. Sean Mooney would host that, and it would be an opportunity to just kind of hype up a particular event, maybe get some interviews in, some promos. Another thing that would happen back then is, during the matches, even during your time there, you'd see a little box pop up in the corner of the screen. And while the match is going on, well, maybe somebody would be cutting a promo and, it would just build character and you'd be able to see those promos and see those interviews. And I feel like, all of that is gone now. And I just wanted to get your take on that and, why that has kind of gone by the wayside.
My good friend Les Thatcher and I have a discussion whenever we talk about how different the TV is and what they should do. And Les always comes up with the personality profile. And he's got a really good point, but I think there's so many other avenues like your social medias, TikTok, your podcast, things like this, to where you get a look inside the social or the personality profile, and they can do it on that stream, that avenue. The shows today are like action adventure shows or dramas, and they've always been like dramas, but it's even more so now with the talking and the promos and the vignettes and the monologues and things like that. So I just think it's part of the evolution of not just entertainment, but the way we get our entertainment. Like nobody watches TV anymore. It's all streaming and on your pad or on your phone or whatever it is. You can get it day and night, whatever time you want. Back then, that was what we had. Those were the tools. And that was the avenue that everybody was going down. These days, people want bigger, stronger, faster, slicker. Okay, I'm done with this. Show me what's next. Let's have it brand new tomorrow, even better than yesterday. And yesterday's gone. Let's move on. Let's move on. And I just don't think, like people asked, would you ever go back to filming wrestling in a studio? I just don't think I think you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's out. People want the shiny glitz and glamour, and it's the same thing with any form of entertainment, like performing in front of live audiences. You have to travel. You have to go out on the road. And I don't know if there's that many bars or clubs that have live music these days. Or we had a comedy store in Knoxville, years ago, and they closed that down maybe 5 years ago. And those kind of places are just going by the wayside. I think it's because of the media that we have and the socialized, the way everybody's in touch at the click of a button these days. So I just think it's something that those in charge are trying to appeal to everybody's senses by giving them flash, and let's go faster these days. So, I mean, I just think it's an evolution that was inevitable, and it took place.
And when it comes to repetition and scheduling, I'd like to get your take on that. It's kind of a double-edged sword, really, because schedule-wise, I feel like the athletes are, granted some time off now, which is great, and it's good for the body to heal. Obviously, less injury. So on that side of things, it's great, more family time. But on the other side, you're not getting the repetition of house shows, which really, make the craft nice and sharp. So what's your take on that?
Well, my take on that is that you do need the reps, you do need the house shows, you do need to get on the road, you need to, uh, you want a rainbow, you have to suffer a little rain sometimes, and I think if you got into wrestling, uh, I think you would have got into it because you not only loved the business, but you loved the lifestyle and you loved being on the road and you loved going out there every night having a reaction like you got. And I think without that, um, you don't have anywhere else to practice craft except in an empty warehouse. And maybe, you may have 7 rings in there, but you're not getting the crowd reaction that you would as you go out and play to a honky tonk full of 5 people, and 3 are drunk, passed out, and the other 2 are behind the bar. I mean, that teaches character, that teaches how to get through, and that also gives you some time to practice. And I I think that's one of those things that, back in the day we had horse-drawn buggies. Now we're in cars. Well, we had towns to perform in. Hazard, Kentucky, places like that. The small rural places where the big guys won't come, but boy, you get a crowd of 500 wrestling fans, and uh, then that's how you learn to have fun and also learn your craft and learn what works and learn what doesn't, and a chance to try something new. So I think I don't think that's very good for today's crop of athletes. But then I look at guys, uh,
Javon Evans.
Evans, yes, yeah, he's like 21 years old, phenomenal. So I mean, I think he's an anomaly that comes along every now and then.
Yeah.
I still think the best way to do this is practice, 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 repetition, repetition, repetition.
And you've always had a great mind for the business, and obviously well respected, known as one of the true great trainers in the wrestling world. If you're talking to a student and say you had to pick 3 matches that you want that student to watch in pro wrestling history, what would those 3 matches be?
Terry Funk versus Harley Race, 1977 in Houston, Texas, has a 45-minute match, 2 out of 3 falls, which doesn't exist anymore today either. But the way they tell the story throughout, it doesn't. You can pick it up at any place in the match. But if you watch the entire match, was 45 minutes, long time, especially for today's crew. Um, you know who the heel is, know who the baby face is, and not necessarily their good guy, bad guy. But Terry Funk has been a heel in Houston. Harley's been a heel the whole time in Houston, but just the fact that they went in and they told the story that this is a match of importance, it's for the world championship, and they the timing is incredible, and it's a hell of a match to study. The other one, uh, Dusty Rhodes versus Superstar Billy Graham. Any one of the trilogies in Madison Square Garden, it's a totally different style of match, but it incorporates the showmanship and the business part of working and telling a story in a different way. Uh, so it's you got Harley Race and Terry Funk in a wrestling match where they're treating it as competition and still doing their quirks and they're doing their body language that make those guys special. Whereas Superstar Billy Graham versus the American Dream Dusty Rhodes selling out Madison Square Garden in New York, the most famous arena in the world, it shows you another way to approach professional wrestling. And these guys had, uh, Dusty came in with a robe, Superstar came in with a tie dye shirt and a WWF championship around his waist, whereas Harley came in with just a jacket. Terry Funk came in with just a towel. They locked up. They told a story. It was still an entertaining match, just entertaining in a different vibe. It gave you a different vibe. And then Steamboat and Flair. Any one of the Steamboat Flair matches. You look at the pace, you think that they're going fast. They're keeping a good pace, but they're taking their time. And when they do things, everything means something. Everything's done for a reason. Then they do sit in a hold, but they're not sitting there resting. There's no such thing as a rest hold. And this is a demonstration of that. They watch how Flair sells the arm when he's in the rest hold, watch what Steamboat does to the arm, and just watch the body language. And those are the things, those are three matches, or at least three scenarios that I would have the guys watch. And we watch those.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to retirement, when a lot of guys retire, that's the end of it. You won't see them again. Maybe they'll do some conventions or whatever it may be. For you personally, you had a wonderful career in ring. And then when did you decide to flip the switch and kind of give back to the community and become a scout, become a trainer? You have that in you. Not everybody does. How did that work for you?
Well, again, we were doing the Bodydonnas, which I hated every minute of the day. And yeah, it was terrible, man. Then Chris Candido broke his neck, and he was going to be out. And I think his contract was running out too. So Vince actually asked me if I ever thought about training guys, and I thought, well, it's a great opportunity now because I'm in '96. I was 36, and I knew I knew there wasn't going to be much for me in WWE as far as working, and I'd seen the writing on the wall and seen who was coming in and what was happening. So I took that as an opportunity to do something else because I knew I couldn't wrestle forever, and that's how that came about. I was given the chance, and I took it.
And what was it about the Bodydonnas gimmick that just threw you off right away when they presented it to you?
Have you ever seen the Bodydonnas?
Well, I have. Yes, I know
Right.
you haven't.
Yeah. Well, every single aspect from the time they asked me, "Would you cut your hair?" to, yeah, the very second I before I walked in the shop there where they cut my hair, I thought maybe I can talk my way out of this. I still hadn't thought of anything else. So, and it was just, it was at a time in my life where, that was the only thing available to me. And I'd known Chris and Tammy from Smoky Mountain, and man, it was a lot to swallow at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say is the best piece of advice that you have received in the industry?
Don't let the small shit get to you, and it's all small shit. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So, your brother, obviously, Bruce, big part of the business over the years as well. What's it like kind of, having a brother that's very successful, you're very successful within the same industry, and, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it's just very cool. Bruce done excellent. Bruce started out pretty much the same way I did.
Yeah.
And he got really into the hows and whys in the office part of it, and I just wanted to wrestle, and that was it. And when I stopped wrestling and started training, I saw the different side of in the office and things like that. I got a little more, but Bruce has always been smart to that way of doing things, and he understands the business very well. He understands not just the fun part of it, but he understands the business part of it. And I made the mistake of thinking it wasn't anything but business, and it really is. It's everything about business. And he's just he works hard, and he's come a long way from where he started, because Paul Bosch groomed him to work in that office, and then when Vince came in, he snatched up Bruce, and the rest is history.
What would you say has been your greatest challenge within the wrestling industry? Obviously not in the ring, just in general.
I don't know. I think it's understanding that nobody's perfect, and that again, going back to yeah, everybody wants to wrestle, and yeah, everybody wants to make some money, but at the end of the day, I stopped and I had to think about, somebody has to make that town with the ring, posters, or promoting, or whether it's TV ads or whatever it is. Somebody else has to do that work. So I think just learning that there's more to it than going to the ring, a lot more to it, and that kind of stuck with me after a while.
So when it comes to the fans of pro wrestling, getting a chance to, meet and greet with them, at different events, what's it like meeting the fans one on one and being able to talk to them directly?
Well, that's the coolest part because I'm still a fan, and I was a fan growing up. So I know what it's like when you meet somebody and they're a complete jerk. I met Piper when I first started in Fresno. My first territory I went to was California, and Piper came in. My first night was in Fresno, California. Piper came in the back door, raising hell, screaming at the office, screaming at everybody, and he looked at me, put out his hand, Roddy Piper, shook his hand, and then he went and continue screaming. You know, I remember the guys who were cool to me, and I remember the guys who weren't. So I'd rather be that guy that if people are taking the time to buy a ticket and go out and scream and yell and have a good time, or taking the time to want to come up and say hello, even if you're not the main event that night, but people want to come up and say hello. There's no harm, no. It doesn't take anything to be nice, and I like meeting people these days because they remind me of the old days, and I like the old days a lot better than I do now.
And you're traveling from city to city, you're traveling from arena to arena. Do you have a favorite venue? Whether it be the territories or WWF, WCW?
Well, I got to tell you, I loved wherever I was at, and most of the buildings were pretty nice. There was some in Oregon where you actually dressed almost it was like a big closet, and it was just. But I mean, that was part of the perks of being on the road. I couldn't think of any place better I'd rather be. Um, if I was traveling down the road for 200 miles for $50, people call you crazy, but I was having the time of my life. So everywhere I went, I always enjoyed the Sam Houston Coliseum. Again, because I grew up there, and for 10 years, I was in the building every night. And then finally, now I'm coming out performing in that building. So that was, I guess, I have to say, Sam Houston Coliseum be one of my favorites.
Any personal memories of the late Howard Finkel?
We used to. I would go up and see Bruce sometimes, and this was just when the pay-per-views were coming out, and we would go over to Howard's house and have pizza and watch the pay-per-views there. And Howard was always a great guy. You met Howard?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh yeah. So you know how energetic he was, and just positive, and a great guy to be around. So yeah, I had the chance to go and watch the pay-per-views at his house and have a good time.
I interviewed Vince Russo not long ago, and he had mentioned that Howard would sometimes drive with his feet, which I
Oh
thought was amazing.
yeah, probably so.
Yeah, sounds
That
about
makes
right.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's got a great personality, great man. He'll definitely be missed for sure.
yeah.
So, top three matches, if you had to pick, that you were a part of throughout your career.
I'd have to say Rock and Roll Express at Survivor Series, even though they hated it. Steiner's at SummerSlam, and I'd even have to say Jericho and Lance Storm in the Coliseum in Knoxville, where Jericho, prior to the match, had gone out and done a shooting star press, broke his arm, and we had just cut promos from last month before before the show, before the matches, and then Chris had cut his and says, "Hey, can I go out and practice something in the ring?" And Jimmy says, "Yeah, just don't get hurt." So we're cutting our promos, and somebody comes back and says, "Hey, Jericho just broke his arm. He's going to the hospital." And Jim thought he was ribbing. Well, sure as hell, about an hour later, Jericho came back with the cast on his arm, and he was ready to do the match. And I thought it turned out to be a great match. He had blood and juice. This was old style Southern wrestling, if you will.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, you've obviously always had a great eye and a great mind for the business. So when you're in that talent scout position, per se, for the young wrestlers listening into this, what is it exactly as a talent scout? You're watching a match. What are you looking for?
Well, let me say this: the basics and fundamentals never go out of style. We know that people can learn how to flip and how to do the high flying stuff, and that's great. And you need sizzle on the steak, no doubt. But if you can't lock up, if you can't walk in the ring, you're really no good to anybody. You have to have a foundation before you can build on it, and that never goes out of style. You have to know the basics. It's still blocking and tackling. I mean, football, baseball, whatever sport you want to mention, they still have the basics. They still have the fundamentals. In baseball, you're still trying to hit a home run, whether you move the fence in or out. I don't care. You're still it's about excitement. It's about getting people into what you're selling, but again, you have to know how to do the basics first, and that's what I tell everybody. I don't care if you can have a Corona or a toupee, or a Hurricane and a toupee, whatever you call it. It's just, if you can't tell me a simple story, again, like a Terry Funk and a Harley Race, they didn't do anything flashy and high flying, but it was the way they did it. It's how they did it with the body language that they had taken so many years to master. And that's what it takes. It takes years to master that body language and that feel and that instinct and that intuition that you have to have. Without that, the high flying stuff is just moves you're doing. And that's all they become. It's just moves. One thing after another with no rhyme or reason. And believe it or not, wrestling is still storytelling. If you remember Gunther and CM Punk, the match they had a couple months back. Was that wasn't SummerSlam, was it?
I don't remember the actual pay.
I don't remember the pay-per-view either, but I mean, I just remember they had a hell of a match, and they told a story, and that's the body language. That's how those guys got over, by doing that stuff. Stone Cold Steve Austin has not ever in his life done one moonsault, but he was the most over star in the business. Why? Well, just look at what that connection was, that charisma, and that's, without that, you have nothing.
Yeah. And we've touched on, your greatest challenge within the industry. How about most rewarding, being a part of the pro wrestling world?
Well, I think just being able to train people and then have them go out and be successful, that is the most rewarding right now.
Any memories of working for the WWA with Mike Spada?
Mike.
I was, when you were the talent scout there, I was the ring announcer.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, then Mike.
Yes.
There you go. Then anybody who doesn't know Mike, I can't explain it any better than that. Mike is almost an unforgettable character.
Right.
Yeah. Once you meet him, you can't unmeet him.
Yeah. So fast forward many years from now, looking back at your career as a whole, what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered?
Well, I have such a hard time watching any of my matches back because they are so archaic and they are so different than I would have probably done it, 30 years later. But I think the legacy I'd rather leave is that I help some of the guys and gals get in and do what they want to do and be a professional wrestler. And I used to think if they're going to come to me, they're looking to go to WWE, and then I come to find out not everybody wants to go to WWE or AEW. They just want to wrestle. They want to do it on the independents, some of these smaller towns where they can have a job and wrestle on the weekends because that's what they want to do. So I would rather be known as that, somebody who gave them an opportunity to live their dream.
And when it comes to doctor, how did that come about within your name?
Well, I broke my leg in Louisville with Pat Rose, and I were wrestling as the Heavenly Bodies, ironically enough, against Stan Lane and Steve Kearns, the Fabulous Ones. And I was on the apron. Stan came in for a quick hot tag, I think it was. Anyway, came in and nailed me off the apron, and I fell down and hurt my leg or my ankle go crack. Anyway, I had to get in the back of the ring and do the rest of the finish, and I got back. And long story, even longer, come to find out, Sherry Martell was managing us. And I thought I knew I hurt my ankle, but I didn't know how bad. So what we did back then, we stopped at the nearest 7-Eleven, got a 12-pack of beer and whatever else we had, and calmed the pain down that way. So I wrestled a week on a broken ankle, and my whole leg, my calf was turning black. And I had somebody take me up every night. Sherry took me over to, she says, I'm going to come by and pick you up in the morning. We're going to go to the hospital and get you x-rayed. Her roommate was a nurse, got me x-rayed, put me in a cast. I had a broken ankle. Went over to Sherry and Tina's house. Tina had these doctor pants to put on over the cast. So I did that. I went back to Houston. Brad Armstrong called me to go to Pensacola, Continental Championship Wrestling. And I went in the normal spot. They bring guys in my size. I was there for like 6 months. Robert Fuller did an angle on TV with a friend of his that he had. And at the end of the angle, the guy gets up there and says, I'm Dr. Love, and I'm going to make sure nothing happens to my boys. Great angle. They beat the shit out of Tommy and Johnny Rich, left them laying in the middle of the ring. The next weekend, when the show airs, the FBI called Robert saying they're looking for this guy. He's on the FBI top 10 most wanted list. Yeah. Jeez. And he was calling himself Dr. Love. So I happened to be wearing my doctor pants to a show one day, and that very next week, as a matter of fact, with Robert Fuller, Jimmy Golden, Jerry Stubbs. And we stopped to get a drink at 7-Eleven. As I got out, Robert looked at my pants and said, well, by God, boy, you could be our doctor. And right there I was born, Dr. Tom Prichard in front of 7-Eleven. Yeah.
What a great story. I always wondered how that started for you.
Yeah. No, it had nothing to do with Baylor University, though.
That's tremendous, though. So James E. Cornette, obviously you guys have a great, legacy together in multiple promotions. Do you have any Jim Cornette stories behind the scenes? What was he like to work with?
Oh, that's the thing. Jim's a passionate guy. And with all passionate guys and all geniuses, there's that fine line. But I got along great with Jim because I understood his passion, I understood his fire, I understood where he was coming from. I made him mad one time when Bruiser Bedlam and I were joking around behind him during a promo in the ring. And he looked back at us because he was trying to remember all the towns, and he had like 3 towns and 3 angles that he had to reiterate, and he was trying to remember all this, and we're laughing in the background. And he came back and told us don't ever do that again. And I understood. That's the only time he ever got really hot because we weren't thinking about business. There you go. But Jimmy is everything you see. That's Jim just turned up to 10. That's the real Jim Cornette. Yeah.
And you've had so many great moments in this industry, in and out of the ring. If you had to pick one moment, what would your number one moment throughout the span of your career be within the industry?
Well, I think just being in the business is my number one moment, getting in, breaking in, because so many people told me I wouldn't. And, I'll never forget, I heard somebody say a long time ago, there's 3 kinds of people in the world: those who try and they never make it because they try and don't make it. And then those who give it the best shot. When they don't make it, they say, at least I gave them my best shot. Yeah. Then that third person who says whatever it takes. And for some reason, I don't remember ever hearing it before, but I remember hearing it that night, and it just stuck with me. I thought, why can't I? Why is it that everybody else in the world can do something, but I can't? And especially professional wrestling seems so out of reach because that was back in the days when it was big guys. Then I learned, no, there were smaller guys in there too. Danny McShane was a small guy. Michelle Leone was Baron Michelle Leone, right? Yeah, not Leone. But also we're smaller guys. So, I mean, that was just I think my greatest achievement was just even breaking in the business and showing people I could do it.
So, Tom's, I really appreciate you being here. It's been an honor to have you here on the podcast. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. For Dr. Tom Prichard, I'm Joseph Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave your comments. We'd love to hear from you, the fans, and what you thought of this episode. We'll see you all next time.